This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ Bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Hi, I'm Katie Duke, and I've been a nurse for over 20 years. Listen, I used to think that I was my most stylish in my 20s, but honestly, style and confidence only get better with age. And that is why I love Figs. These scrubs are beautiful, comfortable, and they are built to last. They're not those boxy, scratchy uniforms that we all started out in. No. These fit perfectly. They feel amazing, and the quality is just wow. My favorite color? Burgundy. It's chic, it's timeless, and it's even the same color as my apartment, because I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I love adding custom embroidery to make my scrubs as personal as my style. And since I work in telehealth, my embroidered Figs even double as my ID badge. It's never too late to reinvent yourself or your scrubs. Get 15% off your first order at wearfigs.com with the code FIGSRX. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX for 15% off your first order.
A warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Ivetta Abrahman. She's doing some great work over at Bracketeer.org with one of our good friends, Rob Donaldson. She's on the Ivetta's College Basketball Tour. I know that she's been to over 60 different games this season. We're going to chat with her about what we all saw in the front half of day number 1. We had to do this before St. Louis just absolutely dismantled Georgia, but we're going to talk about some of the upsets that we've seen, some of the action that we've seen in general. Look forward to these Friday games and just how she filled out her bracket in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this wonderful College Basketball Friday as we hit some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GNet_81. Keep in mind, large DM, they mean does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today. Boy, oh boy, we had a fun first day of the NCAA tournament on Thursday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
How about the scare that Siena gave to Duke? And by the way, this game went under the total, so Siena wraps up the season 11 overs at 24 unders, but Siena was leading by 11 points at the half by a count of 43-32. Wheels fall off at the end. Duke is able to stave off the upset 71-65 the final. And for Siena, well, if they opened up a restaurant, they should have named it Five Guys because nobody scored any points off the bench for them. But in those 5 guys, they held in there, went 9-26 from 3. Duke goes just 5-26 from the outside. They only got 3 points off the bench because of their injuries. Cameron Boozer, he had 22 points, 13 rebounds. He goes 13-14 at the free throw line. His team as a whole goes 18-24 at the charity stripe. But to credit for Siena, they won the turnover battle 8-6. They held in there for all 40 minutes. So that was a very interesting game to say the least. Biggest upset of the day. High Point, they were not a low point on this day. They take down Wisconsin 83-82. Wisconsin up like 8 or so points with about 4 minutes remaining. Looked like they were going to coast to victory, and then it all went into the abyss as High Point gets hot late. Overall for High Point, they go 15 out of 40 from 3-point range. Wisconsin was 9 out of 23 from 3, and Nicholas Boyd, he had 27 points on just 1 turnover in this game. John Blackwell was able to supply the team with 10 rebounds, but for High Point, how about what you were able to get out of Hot Rod Martin? 23 big points in this game. Scotty Washington started the game and he had 0 points, but the team is able to overcome that because for Wisconsin, they lose a rebound battle 40-37. They lose a turnover battle 10-6, and even though Blackwell was able to give you 22 points and 10 rebounds, also had 5 turnovers in this game, and outside of Blackwell and Nick Boyd, weren't able to get a ton out of the ancillary guys. So Wisconsin, they go down. Troy was a very trendy underdog pick. They do not come through against Nebraska. Nebraska 76-47 the final. And for Nebraska, they have certainly been one of your best under teams in all of college basketball. For Nebraska, 10 overs of 23 unders thus far this season. As for Troy, they go a nice already 8 of 28 from 3. And on their 2-point shots, they took 18 of them, and they made 5 of them. That is not great to say the least. Nebraska wins the turnover battle 17-6. They win the rebound battle 37-33. 23 big points out of Price Sanford. They were able to roll in that one. And for Louisville, they do not get the cover on +4.5 if you took that. If you were able to get a little bit of a lower number, they were 83-79. They do get the outright win against South Florida. A South Florida team that they won so many aspects of this game. They do lose a rebound battle 41-37, but won the turnover battle 22-9. For Louisville, though, they had on their team Isaac McNeely, who went 7 of 10 from 3, 23 points. Louisville, 13 out of 25 from 3. South Florida, 5 of 33 from 3. And for South Florida, they go 14 of 16 at the free throw line. Louisville, 14 of 25 at the free throw line. But man, South Florida could not knock down shots. And Joseph Pignon, he goes 5 of 14 from 3. Rest of the team, and I'm not even kidding when I say this, 0 of 19 from 3. Even if they go 2 of 19 from 3, they win this game. So that was a little bit rough. The day, by the way, started off with TCU versus Ohio State. A slobber knocker here. Ohio State was down 15 points at the half. They rally their way back. They get a lead late, but TCU pulls it out by kind of 66-64. The final for Ohio State go just 6 of 23 from 3-point range. All their starters in double figures, but Gabe Cuffs was the only guy that scored off the bench with 3 points. And on the side of TCU, you had a double-double out of David Punch. He gave you some punch. 3 blocks, 13 rebounds, 16 points. For TCU, they go 9 of 23 from 3-point range, and they also played even up with the turnover battle, 7-7, and won the rebound battle 38-32. So they're on to the next round of the NCAA tournament. Also, Vanderbilt, they do not quite cover the 12 against McNeese, but they do find a way 78-68 the final. McNeese was really controlling the first 15 or so minutes of the game, and then order was restored by Tyler Tanner, 26 points, 7 boards, 5 assists. For Vanderbilt, they do lose the turnover battle 13-6, but they win the rebound battle 37-34. For Vanderbilt, they were able to do a nice job in terms of just guarding the inside for McNeese. While they go 9 of 26 from 3, they took, I believe it was 43 2-point shots. They only knocked down 16 of them, so Vanderbilt, they find a way to be able to survive and advance. Also, Michigan State, they get the win and cover over North Dakota State. The Bison just completely romped in this game, 92-67. The final is Michigan State, 10 of 20 from 3-point range. Cam Ward off the bench had 13 points. Carson Cooper, 20 points, 10 rebounds. And for Michigan State, they win the rebound battle, 35-23. As for North Dakota State, just 6 of 25 from 3-point range. Did have 16 points out of Mari Wheeler-Thomas, but they were not wheeling and dealing on this day. So Michigan State, they're able to survive and advance. So is Illinois, all over Penn in this game, 105-70 the final. Just 70 points in the first half, 105 in the second half, as Illinois 15 out of 36 from 3. Keaton Wagler, he had 18 points. David Mirkovic was able to throw in their 29 points, 17 rebounds. For Illinois, they win the rebound battle 48-25. For Penn, they were dealing with a lot of illness. I know they had one of their top scorers out with a concussion as well, so that was not necessarily great for them, as that was a situation that they were dealing with all throughout the back half of the season, as they were without their leader in points per game at Ethan Roberts. But still, for Penn, just not necessarily the greatest showing here. And for this Illinois team, just 3 turnovers in this game as well, so they were able to keep things very efficient out there. Also keeping things very efficient, Michigan in the second half, they got a test from Howard in the first half. This was 50-46 at the half. Michigan, though, wins by kind of 101-80 as they go 11 of 24 from 3-point range. They did lose the turnover battle 10-8, but they won the rebound battle 35-23 as Morris Johnson double-double, 21 points, 10 rebounds. Off the bench, Roddy Gale and Trey McKinney both had double figures. And for Howard, they do go 14 out of 29 from 3. Cam Gillis, Bryce Harris, they both supplied 21 points. So you were able to get the Howard cover in this game, and Howard, they were able to hold in there and cover that spread. Texas A&M, they absolutely romped St. Mary's, 63-50 the finals. St. Mary's on their 2-point shots went 8 of 25. They do go 10 of 23 from 3. They were dealing with the flu in for Joshua Den. Well, he didn't look sick. He had 18 points, but the rest of the team was relatively rough out of them. For Texas A&M, they do lose the rebound battle 32-31, but won the turnover battle 18-10. And a St. Mary's team that has been number 1 in the country in terms of free throw shooting percentage, 4 of 11 at the charity stripe. And Rashawn Agee, 22 points, 9 rebounds. Texas Tech, they get the job done. And then another team from the great state of Texas, the Longhorns, 79-71. They're able to take down BYU. For BYU, 4 of 22 from 3. A.J. DeMonza did all he could, 35 points, 10 rebounds, goes 12 of 12 at the free throw line, but for Texas, despite the fact that they went 9 of 18 at the free throw line, they win the rebound battle 40-31. Do lose the turnover battle 9-7, but for Mateus Volkaitis, he was able to supply the team with 23 points, 16 rebounds. Texas, they're on to the next round of the NCAA tournament. So is VCU. They were down 19 points in their game against North Carolina, and North Carolina upchucks defeat from the jaws of victory as they go 12 of 20 at the free throw line, 82-78. In overtime, VCU gets the job done. How about Terrence Hill off the bench? 34 points, 13 out of 23 from the floor. For VCU, they do lose the turnover battle 10-8. They lose the rebound battle 44-39, but the 12 of 20 at the charity stripe for North Carolina, coupled with 8 of 29 from 3. Meanwhile, VCU was 11 of 26 from 3. That ended up being a big difference in this game. For Arkansas, they were able to run Hawaii out of the building, 54 points in the first half, 97-78. Arkansas, they find a way to be able to get the job done, and if you're looking at your best cover teams in all of college basketball, Arkansas has certainly been one of them. With this cover, now in terms of against the spread record, they do find themselves in the top 10 in all of college basketball. As Hawaii, they had Isaac Big Fish Johnson be able to give them a relatively solid performance in this game. He did his best. As for Isaac Johnson, he was able to supply the team with 15 points, 5 rebounds, but for Arkansas, they win the rebound battle 41-31. They win the turnover battle 12-10, and for Arkansas, they only go 4 of 21 for 3, but Darius Acuff was able to supply 25 points in this one. They did a nice job getting pretty much anything that they wanted from the inside, and for Arkansas, going back to that against the spread record for them, now 23-12 against the spread, so they have been one of your best cover teams in all of college basketball. A team that was able to just go on a romp. How about St. Louis? 102-77. They absolutely destroyed Georgia. At one point, they were up 160 in this game. St. Louis now 19-12-2 against the spread. For St. Louis, Robbie Avila, he only had 12 points in this game. It's not like he went into Inferno mode, but for St. Louis, they had, I believe it was 5 different guys in double figures, actually 6 guys in double figures, 7 different guys with 9+ points per game. Hull was greater than some of its parts. For Georgia, 10 of 39 from 3. They lose a rebound battle 47-36. They lose the free throw battle as they go 17 out of 26 at the free throw line. St. Louis shot it much better, only 11 free throws, but they knocked down 9, so they were able to get a nice quality winning cover out there. For Houston, they get a quality winning cover over Idaho, 78-47 the final. For Houston, 8 of 15 from 3-point range. Kingston Flemings led the way with 18 points, but 5 different players in double figures, and Chris Ennick just 7 points, but 18 rebounds as Houston. They win the rebound battle by a count of 47-32. They win the turnover battle 9-7, and for Idaho, 16 out of 56 from the floor. And then you saw Kennesaw State go Owls. They held in there against Gonzaga. They don't get the win, but they do get a cover, 73-64 the final. Graham Ike did his part for Gonzaga, 19 points, 8 rebounds, and for Gonzaga, they win the turnover battle by a count of 11-10, rebound battle by a count of 45-34, but just 3 of 18 from 3. Kennesaw, not a lot better. 3 of 17 from 3 as Caden Reichert, he came off the bench, won 2 of 3 from 3. So, rest of the team, they won a nice hearty 1 of 14 from 3-point range. So, you had yourself a great day of college basketball on Thursday. And if you're looking at what we've all gotten this college basketball season, it's been all about the unders and the underdogs. Underdogs hitting at 51.6%, 2,929 and 2,750 against the spread. The unders are hitting at 50.7%, 2,881 and 2,799. And you look at the last 7 days in college basketball, so the biggest games of the season, 54 unders to 40 overs. That's a 57.4% rate to the under, and underdogs, 57 and 37, 60.6%. That's what we're seeing in college basketball right now. That's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, let's take a look at these Friday games with Ivetta Abrahman doing great work over at our good friend Rocco Miller's website of Bracketeer.org. Right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peters, and now a part of the Decent Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. It is great to be joined by this lady as we've got Ivetta Abrahman aboard. I know that she is doing an absolutely incredible job over with Rocco Miller's website, bracketeer.org. She's been doing some great work over there. You can find her on social media touring so many different campuses and so many different college basketball venues. I know that she's up to quite a few, and you're able to follow her on the old Twitter /X at her first and last name, Ivetta Abrahman. That last name is spelled Abramyan. And Ivetta, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg. Merry Madness to you and yours. It is here, and it has delivered so far.
Oh, it certainly has. As we are doing this, we are coming off of Siena giving Duke a very nice scare. We saw High Point come back, get the job done against Wisconsin. And just how have you taken a look at March Madness thus far? We're doing this going into the late slate on Thursday, and I feel like while we might not be getting some sort of like an Oral Roberts like upset or anything like that, it feels like those that said that Cinderella was dead last year, well, they're eating a little bit of crow right now.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. And I had a feeling there were going to be some upsets this year. Obviously, it's hard to pinpoint which upsets, but I had a feeling just based on the seeding and just, based on the way that I feel like we kind of unanimously felt that the committee got it right this year. It's great to see, especially after last year's very chalky tournament.
Oh, absolutely. And I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what we get moving forward. And just how have you been taking a look at some of these underdogs here early on? Because it feels like a lot of these, shall we say, chic underdogs, they've been having a little bit of a rough go of it. As we did see Troy just get absolutely dump trucked by Nebraska. They got the job done. McNeese was able to get that cover, and they looked very good early on against Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt was able to prevail late. And I always do think that it is really interesting to take a look at some of these teams that everyone perceives as the public underdogs, because we saw one already come through an High Point and one in Troy that, they did not show up.
Yeah, exactly. Troy was actually one of my favorite plays. I think a lot of people were on Troy. I mean, they're battle tested. They spent a month out west at the beginning of the season. They've been
25 extra minutes in the San Diego State and USC games.
Exactly. Yeah, they've beaten some good teams. They've got some good guards. I could not believe that. I could not believe that. It was almost a 30-point loss. I think a 29-point loss or something like that. I couldn't believe it. I thought maybe they would make a run in the second half, but they didn't. But High Point, like you said, that game was just so exciting, and really glad they pulled it out there at the end. So we got that upset. I think we all had our fingers crossed for Siena, but then of course, Duke kind of battled back in the second half. I agree, McNeese, that's about right about, I think, where most people thought they would be, that 10-point range there. I thought North Dakota State was going to close in a little bit to cover that 16.5-point number there, but Michigan State kind of ran away with it at the end. And then you had, Arkansas, Hawaii, same thing there. I know we're all rooting for the Bows in their first championship appearance there. And then the TCU Ohio State game was great early. I mean, obviously not the most exciting matchup to start out. out. It ended up a really good game. So yeah, and USF Louisville, same thing. USF kind of fought back there at the end as well, because as you know, in the first half, they weren't playing very well. It didn't look like it was going to be much of a game.
Yep, absolutely. And for Ohio State, they got down 15 or 14 points at the half. Did a nice job in terms of battling their way back. So that's going to be a lot of fun to look at. And Ivetta, we're doing this as we don't know the results for Thursday night. So perhaps we get a shocker or two. But looking forward to Friday, I do think that it's a very interesting card. There are a few chic upsets that I'm liking. And is there a team or two that might be seeded as a double-digit seed that you could perhaps see winning outright on the money line?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So for the double-digit seeds, I actually really like Friday's slate. I think there are going to be a lot of competitive games. And I think there are more upset potentials than today. I like a lot of the covers. As far as double-digit outright upsets, I don't know if I like a lot of the single-digit teams, but you never know. You never know if we get one of those. Maybe Hofstra against Alabama. I think especially with Alabama being shorthanded, I think that's a double-digit at 11.5. I really like Northern Iowa, but they're at 9.5, so they're kind of right there on the cusp. And then all the other ones, I don't see. I think I see a lot of covers, but I don't see a lot of outright wins from the other double-digit categories.
Absolutely. And with regards to the seeding, I believe that there's one or two seeds that are double figures that you do like, because I believe that you're like me in on Santa Clara here on Friday.
Yes, sir. I actually really like Santa Clara against Kentucky. They're the better rebounding team. Their shot selection's better. They have size. They have depth. And as you know, Kentucky's been inconsistent and injury-laden. So for Santa Clara, this is their Super Bowl. I think they're going to get up for this game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I know we're looking at, I think, a 3.5 last time I checked for that. But I think this game's going to come down to the wire, and I think they definitely can upset Kentucky.
Yep, absolutely. That's one that I'm very much looking at as Ivetta Abrahman. She's doing tremendous work over with our good friend Rocco Miller over at Bracketeer.org. She's joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and I know that we all love the upset picks. We all love to take the double figure seeds. Is there one or two favorites that you're taking a look at, though, that you feel like, hey, maybe there's a lot of people are picking against this team, everyone's wanting the underdog, but I just don't see the upset in this case, and we could see a little bit of a replay of something like Arkansas taking it to Hawaii, or a replay of Nebraska taking it to Troy.
Like a massive blowout. I think Iowa State and Houston, as large as those spreads are, I think they're going to get covered, and perhaps Purdue as well. Arizona historically has been known to not cover in the tournament, so I'm a little iffy on them. I think potentially LIU could keep it close, but I think Iowa State, Houston, and Purdue, I could definitely see those kind of potentially getting out of hand. I think UConn, I think Furman and Prairie View will cover the large spreads, especially Prairie View. Now, I don't think there's an upset potential there, but I think 35.5 is just a little too rich. I think Florida does get it done comfortably, maybe wins by 30, maybe gives a lot of the bench some tournament experience, but I don't think they have a reason to run up the score beyond what is necessary.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The number of 35.5, for me, it's just way too many points in this ordeal. And would you say that perhaps Florida might be the most vulnerable one seed? I had said knowing that Duke obviously got pushed to the limit by Siena, but I do take a look at Florida with a potential Sweet 16 matchup against Vanderbilt. I feel like the committee really didn't do a lot of favors for Florida, while I feel like they did a lot of those favors for Michigan, who I didn't necessarily love coming into the tournament, but out of the 4 1 seeds, I felt like they got the best draw.
100% agree, Greg. Michigan, I think, has the easiest path from the 1 seeds, so I definitely agree there. Florida's got that potential rematch with Houston, too, that I think everybody's kind of secretly waiting and hoping for if that were to actually transpire. So, yeah, I agree. It's going to be tough for Florida. I think it's really tough for Duke. I don't see that, honestly, don't see this Duke team making it to the Final Four. I think they are going to get upset. Maybe today was a wake-up call for them with Siena. And, they're a little shorthanded as well. But there's just so many teams, I think, in the East region that can upset them as well. So, yeah, I think Florida and Duke have a tough road. I think Michigan and Arizona have an easier path, with Michigan having an easier path than Arizona.
Yep, I'm right there with you, and I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what we've got moving forward. And I know that people have already filled out their brackets, but I just want to know, what are you rooting for on your bracket? Who'd you all take to go to the Final Four, and are you having any regrets, or are you feeling good about it right now?
I think there are some teams that could pull some upsets. TCU is one of those teams. I've kind of had my eye on them, and they showed that earlier today against Ohio State, so they got that done. So I think they're a team that could surprise some people, maybe even like a Utah State or even like a BYU. I know they've been catching a lot of flack for their underperformance recently, but you never know which of these teams are going to just turn it on for the tournament. Miami's another one that's kind of dangerous, right? I think Iowa State, obviously we've got the Kentucky-Santa Clara situation, but I think Iowa State can make it to the Final Four. I think from the West region, if Arizona gets beaten, then I think that kind of rips the West wide open there. Also, Greg, I'm really interested about the UCLA UCF game. I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. North Carolina VCU, St. Mary's Texas A&M. You got that clash of styles there. So I think so far it's kind of going like I planned. But yeah, I think we're not done yet with the upsets. I think we're going to see some interesting games ahead.
Absolutely, and I'm very much going to be pulling for Purdue, as they are the team that I advanced to be able to win the title, so that is going to be a lot of fun. And Ivetta, I know you're doing such an amazing job with Bracketeer.org and so many others looking at this game of college basketball. I know you've got a lot of stops on your tour here the next few weeks as you take a look at some of the biggest games in college basketball, so let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, so I will be heading out I just did the 3 tournaments out in Vegas, Big West, the WAC, and the Mountain West, the championship games. I'm heading out to Chicago for the Midwest Regional, so I'll be there next weekend for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. And then I will be heading out to the Final Four in Indy and hoping to catch a couple of the NIT games while I'm out there as well, since they're on the Sunday, the off days, the championship game there. So yeah, and you can follow me on Twitter at Ivetta Abrahman, Ivetta Abrahman, and looking forward to it. It's here. Very, very exciting. Wish everybody the best of luck, and let's enjoy the tournament.
Absolutely. It is going to be a fun one. We already got some fireworks early on Thursday, and moving forward, I think that there's going to be a ton of them, and Ivetta, she's here for it all. So a big thanks to Ivetta for joining me on Coast to Coast Soup Stop, part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Friday as we hit some big shots. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Ivetta Abrahman. She's doing some great work with our good friend Rocco Miller over at Bracketeer.org. Every single time she joins me, she lends such great insights and did so once again today. So a big thanks to Ivetta for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Friday, this round of 64 Friday, as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81. We're going to be going in Las Vegas station order, which I have no idea how they structured this. It goes with the games in Philadelphia first, and then the games in St. Louis next, the games in San Diego after that, and actually before the Philadelphia games, you get the games out there in Tampa, Florida, and it's really not in time order. So it's good, clean family fun. I list the order of the games in wherever you're getting this podcast, Twitter/X, Apple Podcasts, Google Play in the description, because they did not do us any favors here. That said, we've got ourselves fun. These are great games, and let's get it started. 741, 742, Akron and Texas Tech do battle. Texas Tech, 7.5-point favorites. Totals between 155.5 to a 156. I personally went with the money line here of Akron. I set them as a 1.5-point favorite. I recognize that I'm playing a dangerous game, but this is an Akron team that has been awesome on offense. They are a top 5 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Without JT Toppin, Texas Tech has still been solid on offense. They're making 39.3% of their threes, 4th in the country, 32nd in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Luke Bognamboy is able to give you a little bit of something down low, and even though it sounds like Christian Anderson should be good to go here for the NCAA tournament tournament, you have to wonder how close to 100% he's going to be. He slips on that glass floor out there in the Big 12 tournament. He's really now their main scorer with 18.5 points, 7.5 assists, shoots 42.5% from three. If you don't have him at 100%, you really don't have anyone else on the roster that averages more than 2.5 assists per game. As Luan Watts has some versatility, 11.5 points, 6 boards. Donovan Atwell shoots about 45% from three-point range, but that's a big giant issue, especially when you're going up against someone like a Tavari Johnson, who's been absolutely tremendous for the Akron team right now, supplying about 20 points per contest. You've got Armani Lyles, who's been shooting 37.5% from three, great versatility, 14 plus points, 8 plus rebounds per game. The Mahaffey brothers, Eric and Evan Mahaffey, have done a nice job contributing to the offense, with Eric shooting 40% from three-point range. And let's say that Texas Tech is able to do a good job in terms of guarding the perimeter, as they've actually been a top 75 team in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage. This is a team that's able to go inside Akron as a top 10 team as well with regards to their own two-point shooting percentage, and that's where you're really able to get this Texas Tech team. Texas Tech, in terms of opponents' two-point shooting percentage, 124th outside the top 185 in terms of defensive rebound percentage. I think that Akron, against a very short-handed Texas Tech team, gets the job done. I like Akron on the money line at a 156 plus. Do like the under, even though Akron is a top 75 team in terms of total possessions per game. Made my total 155.5. 743, 744. Hofstra and Alabama do battle, and Alabama is an 11.5 point favorite. Total is between 158 to 159. Now, on my bracket, I actually did advance Hofstra. I'm only going to take the points here. I'm not going in on the money line, but do note that if you were listening to the bracket podcast, I did advance them. Sometimes I feel like you need to take risks on your bracket that maybe you're not going to take with regards to a money line play, but I think Hofstra is very, very live here. With Hofstra, this team is in the top 10 with regards to opponents' two-point shooting percentage. They do a nice job in terms of hauling in their second and third chances as well. 38th in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. Silas Sunday is able to give you 7 boards, a little bit of our block per contest victory. Otinu has been able to give you 8 plus rebounds per game, and this is an Alabama team that will give you second and third chances. For Alabama, currently in terms of defensive rebound percentage, they are checking in well outside the top 200 of college basketball. As a matter of fact, they are allowing teams to grab 30.4% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is 275th in all of college basketball, and we all know what's going with Alabama right now. They're a team that shoots 53.7% from three-point range. That's the highest percentage of the field goal attempts that come from three-point range. And Aiden Holloway, who shoots 43.8% from distance, that is the top mark on the team. He's the number 2 scorer with 17 points per game. He got caught for pot. That's not great to say the least. He's not going to be playing in this game. You've got LeBaron Filan, who gives you 21.5 points, 4.5 assists per contest, but a team that really lives and dies by the three. They're hurt there. It's a Hofstra team that's a top 75 team with opponents shooting about 31.3% from three-point range, and I think that they're going to cruise in this one. Cruz Davis, 20 points, 3.5 boards, 4.5 assists, shoots 40% from three. You got German Plintikoff, who's been able to give you 9.5 points per contest. Preston Eadman, James Boogie Patterson. These guys are nice ancillary pieces, especially Eadman, who's been able to give you 16 points, 4.5 assists per game. And for Hofstra, one thing about them is that they don't put you under duress. Outside the top 300 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, Alabama doesn't generate any of those turnovers either. I think that for Hofstra, they do a nice job in terms of holding in this game. So set my line at 7. I took the points with Hofstra and advanced them in my bracket. Keep in mind, Alabama top 10 team in terms of total possessions per game, and they're going to give up a lot of scoring opportunities. So instead of a total of 165, I like the over. 745, 746, Prairie View and Florida do battle. And for Florida, they do find themselves as 31.5 point favorites, and these are games out there in Florida, by the way. And total on this game, 155 to 155.5. Essentially a home game year for Florida, and they're going to be able to cruise in this game. 35 to 35.5 is just a ridiculous number. I'm willing to take the points here with Prairie View. I set them as a 31.5 point underdog. Prairie View is going to get dump trucked on the glass. Florida leads the country with regards to rebound percentage. Prairie View is 335th, but this Prairie View team is a top 40 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. I think that they're going to put Florida under duress, as Boogie Fland has been able to give you double figures along with Xavion Lee, but both of these guys have just not been able to shoot it well from three-point range. Fland has been a little bit better recently, but still, if you look overall for the season, he shoots 23% from three. Lee shoots 28% from three. This team is right around about 164th in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, outside the top 320 with their three-point shooting percentage as well. Now they're going to get second and third chances. Ruben Chinyelu, 11.5 points, 11.5 rebounds per game. Alex Condon, 15 points, 8 boards. Thomas Hall, he's able to give you 6 boards, 17 points per game. So, I mean, all these guys are absolutely magnificent, but on the flip side for Prairie View, now you're starting to get Terrion Joseph healthy. He was missing throughout much of SWAC play. He was the team's top scorer before going down with an injury. He played a little bit here in the last few nights, so we'll see what he's able to do moving forward, but they're able to go around the horn with Dante Horn. In conference play with Joseph dealing with injury, he stepped up. He was able to give the team 24 points per game. Got a guy in Lance Williams who's able to shoot about 42% from three-point range, and this is a Prairie View team that they get to the free throw line. They're top 30 team in terms of free throw attempts on a per possession basis. They shoot 75.5% at the free throw line, and you're going to get no shortage of possessions in this game. Florida's a team that's looking to run it and gun it in terms of total possessions per game. They are 29th in all of college basketball. Prairie View, they are 24th, so set a high total view here of a 159.5, like the over, and with Prairie View, won't take 32 plus with them. 747, 748, it's Iowa, and they're going to be facing off against Clemson. Clemson is a underdog here of 2 to 2.5 points. 129 to 129.5 is the total. Set my total at a 130.5. I feel like we just have went a little bit too low. I like the over, even though you've got an Iowa team that's as slow as molasses. 364th out of 365 teams in terms of total possessions per game. Clemson is 329th, but for this Clemson team, I think that they're going to be able to do a nice job on the inside. They don't allow second and third chances. Only 24% of opponents' missed shots become an offensive rebound in games played away from them. Top 20 mark in the country, and this is an Iowa team that does rank outside the top 275 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Their forte on defense is generating turnovers, 14th in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, but with Clemson, they do rank 33rd in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, so they do a nice job valuing the ball. Now for Iowa, they've got the best player in this game. That'd be Bennett Sturts, 20 points, 4.5 assists, shoots 37.5% from three, and Davion Banks, well, he's banking it in at 47% from the outside. He gives you about 10.5 points per game. Don't have a single guy in the roster that gives you over 4.5 rebounds per game, and that results in them not giving themselves second and third chances outside the top 190 in terms of offensive rebound percentage. But that said, this has been a team that has been able to do a solid job in terms of not allowing opponents to be able to get second and third chances as well. But on the flip side for Clemson, very much a holes greater than some of its parts approach. They are now missing Carter Welling, which that hurts them quite a bit, but still, you've got essentially 7 different guys that give you at least 5.4 points per game. RJ Godfrey is main man, 12 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. Nick Davidson, he's able to give you about 9 points, 4 boards. Justin Porter has been able to throw in there about 9.5 points, a little bit over a steal per game. Clemson just doing a lot of little things well with regards to taking care of the ball. They're a top 85 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, top 95 team in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. They overall rank in the top 45 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. I like Clemson here on the money line to get the job done with their ball security, and I do think that you get late fouls for the over. So do like the over and Clemson on the money line. 749, 750. Central Florida is going to be playing against UCLA. UCLA is a 5.5 point favorite total on this game. It is 152.5, and with UCLA, I did set them as a 2.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take the points with Central Florida. This is a Central Florida group that certainly has left a little bit of something to be desired on defense, and by that I mean they've left a lot to be desired outside the top 225 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. 246th in the country with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They are more country average, 186th in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, but UCLA is not firing all cylinders down low either. UCLA is outside the top 150 with their own 2-point shooting percentage, about 224th in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. For UCLA, they do a nice job taking care of the ball, a top 15 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Now Tyler Bilodeau and Donovan Dent have to deal with injuries. Both of these guys should be good to go, but you don't know if they're going to be 100%. Dent is give you 7.5 assists per game, gives you no outside shooting, but does a nice job doling to someone like Bilodeau, who shoots 46% from three. Trent Perry, Sky Clark, they combine to shoot about 42% from three-point range, combined about 24 points per contest. The Daily Show, Eric Daly, has been able to give you about 11.5 points, 6 rebounds per game. But on the flip side for Central Florida, you've got the men from UW-Milwaukee and Themis folks along JaMychal Stillwell. Stillwell, I think, is going to be able to have some success down low. Central Florida has been a top 75 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage. Stillwell's giving you about 11.5 points, 8 boards, 3.2 of them on the offensive glass. Riley Kugel and Folks combined for 28 points per game, and Folks is able to give you about 6.7 assists per contest. They combine to shoot about 40% from 3-point. Jordan Burks has been able to shoot about 36% from 3. Central Florida overall has been able to do a nice job on offense. They're a top 50 team with regards to their own 3-point shooting percentage. Now UCLA, top 20 team with that regard, but UCLA also looking to slow things down quite a bit in terms of total possessions per game. This team checks in 302nd in all of college basketball, so do think that you get a little bit more of a slog of a game. I set my line at 2.5, so I'm going to be willing to take the points for Central Florida, and I like the under as well. 751, 752, it's Furman. They're going to be playing against Connecticut. This is going to be out there from the great state of Pennsylvania. For Connecticut, they are 20.5 point favorites. 136.5 to 137 is the total, and I like the under. I set my total at a 134.5. Neither of these teams are going to be looking to play at warp speed right now. For UConn, 289th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and Furman 269th, and it's a Furman team that I'm not going to call them amazing on defense or anything like that, but 52nd in the nation in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. They do a nice job holding up there, and they do a great job down low. 4th in the country with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentage in a road/neutral court environment. You've got the Bowsers, and Cooper Bowser gives you 14.6 rebounds per game. Cole Bowser has come on strong with about 5 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. Charles Johnson is able to give you about 10 points, 9 boards. Doesn't really pop it well from 3. And Furman as a whole, they only shoot about 32.7% from the outside. That's outside the top 250 in all of college basketball, but they make their hay down low. They've had a little bit of a tough time with turnovers, outside the top 235 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. UConn not really a team that's putting you under too much stress. It's a UConn team that they do everything solid, but they don't necessarily do one thing great, I think is the best way of being able to put it, aside from really not give it up from three-point range, as this is a team that is in the top 35 with regards to opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. You have Terrace Reed, who should be able to win the battle down low, 2 blocks, 13.5 points, right around about 8 rebounds per game. Alex Caravan shoots 38.5% from 3, 12.5 points per game, and I like what Silas Demery brings to the table, about 11 points, 4.5 boards, 6 assists, steal and half per contest, so a little bit of this and that. Solo ball still give you 13.5 points per game, despite the fact that he's down to shooting only about 30.5% from 3, but with the way that Furman does the little things well on offense, they're able to hit their 2-point shots, they really cut you off from 3-point range. I think that that's going to keep them lively, and what I think is going to be a defensive slog with UConn, a top 15 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Made my line 18.5, so we'll take the 20 plus here with Furman. I do like the under, set by total 134.5, 753, 754. Miami of Ohio is going to be taking on Tennessee. Tennessee is an 11.5 point favorite. Total on this game 148.5 to 149.5. I think that the run ends here for Miami of Ohio, but I'm willing to take 11.5. I set my line at 11. You've got a Miami of Ohio team that's just absolutely cooked on offense all season long. Now, for Miami of Ohio, they are going to be completely outgunned on the offensive glass. Tennessee leads the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. They rebound 44.7% of their misses as an offensive rebound. Miami of Ohio is 324th. They rebound 23.4% of their misses. They're not awful on the defensive glass, though. They only allow teams to grab about 26.5% of their misses as an offensive rebound. That's the top 100 mark in the country. Have to love what you're getting out of Peter Suter, Brent Byers. These two guys combined for about 28.5 points per game. Both shoot 40+% from 3. And Elmore, who was the star of that game against SMU, shoots 45% from 3, throws in there 13 points per game. Elmore Allison, he's got a little bit of versatility as he stands right around about 6'8". He's able to pop it from 3, and they're going to need it because Nate Amon, he was averaging 20 plus points per game in SEC play, a man that has been able to really put the team on his shoulders here in the back half of the season. 17.5 points, 6.5 rebounds per game. If you do have one fatal flaw with this Tennessee team, though, they are not great in terms of taking care of the ball outside the top 200 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, and it's still a solid Tennessee defense. They're not quite what they have been in the past, so about 40th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They give up about 12.5 points more per 100 possessions when they're away from them rather than at home. They're still really good in terms of guarding the 3-point line, but for Miami of Ohio, not only are they a good team with regards to being a top 35 team in terms of their 3-point shooting percentage on offense, they're also a top 20 team with their 2-point shooting percentage as well, and it travels really well as well. Meanwhile, Tennessee, they're allowing teams to shoot just 30.6% from the outside. That is 22nd in all of college basketball. And for Miami of Ohio, top 85 team with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage away from home at 32.1%. While you do have a lot of guys that low, like Jalen Carey, 7.5 points, 6 boards, Felix Opara, 7.5 points, 6 boards, block and half per contest. I think Miami of Ohio does enough to be able to hold in there against a team that has been a little bit sloppy with the ball. And I'm not here to say that Miami of Ohio is amazing with regards to generating turnovers, but they're not awful. They're a top 150 team with regards to turnovers generated on a per possession basis. I think that they hold in there. And I do think that you get an over with Miami of Ohio having some holes on the inside and Tennessee grabbing those second and third chances. Like the over, I total 151, and at an 11.5 plus, won't take the points with Miami of Ohio, made them an 11-point dog. 755, 756. Wright State, they are going to be playing against Virginia. This is out there from Pennsylvania. And for Virginia, they're a favorite of 17.5 to 18.5 points. 144.5 to 145.5 is the total. And for Virginia, I did set them as a 13.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take the points as Wright State has had their offense travel really well. 24th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis in a roadside shoot score venue. They shoot 40.8% from 3-point range away from home. That is 5th in the country. And while they're going to be at a disadvantage down low, as for Virginia, they are 14th in the country in terms of overall rebound percentage, top 10 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage. Wright State isn't bad themselves. They are 71st in the country with regards to their overall rebound percentage. Now, I don't think that they're going to be able to stand up to Thaddeus Ritters, give you 15 plus points, 6 plus rebounds per game, and then Jonah Grunlo, Ogana Unyesu, they give you a combined over 5 blocks per contest, but you do have Michael Emirage, who's been able to give you about 12.7 rebounds per game. Kellen Pickett has been able to throw in there 5.5 rebounds per game, and the ancillary pieces for this team shoot really well from 3. Solomon Caglin, Dominic Pangonis, they combine for about 19 points per game. Between the two of them, they're shooting about 38.5% from 3-point range. Michael Cooper has been splitting time coming off the bench, being a starter as a freshman. He's led the way with about 13.5 points per game for a Wright State team that is a top 150 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Virginia's not going to put you under duress. They're about 249th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. After like what Sam Lewis and Malik Thomas have been able to do with a combined 23 points per game, Lewis is able to shoot 40% from 3, and Virginia is a solid 3-point shooting team. To call them amazing, I think we'll be going a little bit far, but they do shoot about 36% from three-point range. That's a top 75 mark in all of college basketball. That's been a Virginia team that in step-up games, they've had a little bit of a tough time against lesser competition. I would consider this to be one of them. They've had a little bit of an easier time, but also a team that has been averaging about 13.5 points fewer per 100 possessions away from home rather than at home. And Virginia is a little bit of a slower tempo team in terms of total possessions per game, 231st. So do like the undersell by total 137.5, and we'll take the points with Wright St. Made them a 13.5 point dog. 757, 758. Missouri and Miami are going to be doing battle. This is going to be from the Enterprise Center out there in St. Louis, Missouri. And for Miami, they're 1.5 to 2 point favorites. Totals between 146.5 to 147.5. Does have to be factored in that this is essentially a home game for Missouri. We're going to call it what it is. But even with that, I did set Miami as a 4.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number, mainly because I just have not really been impressed by this Missouri team all season long. They are 330th in all of college basketball in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Now, Miami is 272nd, but Miami also has a big edge on the glass. They are 10th in the country with regards to overall rebound percentage. You've got a Missouri team that's more around about 53rd. And for Missouri, you have to love what Mark Mitchell brings to the table. 18 points, 5.5 boards, 3.5 assists per contest. And then Teal Barrett has been able to come on strong. I remember that game that he had against Tennessee a few weeks ago where he went into inferno mode for 20-plus points. He's been able to give you double figures in 4 of the last 5 games. But this isn't quite the same outside shooting team that they've been in the past. They shoot about 35% from 3. That's outside the top 100 in all of college basketball. And for Missouri, they're a good but not great offense. They're about 60th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. And for Miami, this has been a team that's been 37th in terms of points per possession. I think that they've got the best low post presence in this game, as Malik Reneau has been able to shoot in the mid-30s from three-point range. Just does a great job in terms of being the catalyst for a bit of everything. 18.5 points, shoots 35% per 3, 6.5 rebounds per game. Ernest Uday down low is able to give you only about 7 points per contest, but a block and a half, 9 rebounds per game. And then Trey Donaldson shoots in the mid-30s from 3. True Washington shoots in the mid-30s from 3. They combine for about 28.5 points per game. Now, fatal flaw with Miami is that they shoot 68.5% the free throw line. That is a bottom 55 mark in the country. Missouri, they shoot 68.6% the free throw line. That is a bottom 65 mark in the country. So both teams are very much equals there. You've got a Missouri team that just gets absolutely lambasted from three-point range, with Miami also having the edge down low. I do think that they find a way to be able to get the job done in this ordeal, and Miami is a top 100 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and Missouri is outside the top 260 with their ball security. Just on my line at 4.5, I'm going to be willing to lay with Miami, and I do like the over. Miami, a top 125 team in terms of total possessions per game. So my total at a 150.5. 759, 760. You've got Queens NC, and they're going to be playing against Purdue, and Purdue does find themselves as a 25 to 25.5 point favorite. 162.5 to 164 is a total. So my total at 163.5. Personally, I would rather have the 162.5 to the over rather than the 164 to the under, mainly because this is a Queens NC defense and they are really, really giving it up. And Queens NC, they're fast. They're not necessarily warp speed fast. 63rd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Purdue is looking to play very slowly. 340th in terms of total possessions per game. But boy, is this Purdue team efficient. How about number 2 overall in terms of points per possession on offense? They lead the country in points per possession in games played away from home. And you got a Queens NC team that they are getting lambasted in pretty much every facet of basketball. 284th in the country with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Now, Queens shoots 35.9% from 3. They're 67th in terms of 3-point shooting percentage. Overall, 27th in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. So they've got a high-powered offense. That said, you just can't overcome a defense that is allowing teams to shoot over 35.8% from 3. 293rd in all of college basketball. And interestingly for this Purdue team, and I recognize that they're not necessarily the greatest offensive team in the world, but they've been much better on defense away from home rather than at home. Games played away from home, they're a top 100 team with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage at about 32.3% in terms of their points allowed on a per possession basis. Overall, they're 161st in all of college basketball, but again, in games played away from home, that does elevate into the top 70 in all of college basketball. And you have a backcourt that has been to a national title before, and Braden Smith along with Fletcher Lawyer. Lawyer has been able to shoot about 41% from 3, 14 points per contest. Smith just does it all. 3.5 boards, 9 assists, 14 points per game. And then Oscar Clough, Trey Kaufman, Ryan, a combined 16 rebounds per game for a team that is in the top 40 in terms of defensive rebound percentage. Queens NC, they are going to give up their fair share of second and third chances outside the top 275 in terms of defensive rebound percentage. Nasir Man has been the man with about 13.5 points, 6 rebounds per game. And you do have 6 different guys for Queens NC that give you at least 10.2 points per contest. They do have that good 3-point shooting, and you've been able to have both Chris Ashby, Jordan Watford be able to combine for about 23.5 points, both shoot 37.5% from 3-point range. But I just don't think that they're going to be able to stand up to Purdue in this ordeal. Do think that the number is starting to get a little little bit out of whack. I set my line at 25.5. Right now, I'm still seeing a few straight 25s out there. Let's open up at 22.5, but 25 or less won't lay with Purdue. And I do like this over at a 163 or less, 761, 762. Santa Clara is going to be playing against Kentucky. Kentucky does find themselves as 2.5 to 3.5 point favorites. Total on this game, 158.5. And with Kentucky, I did set them as the underdog of 2.5 points. I like Santa Clara here right on the money line. It is a Santa Clara team that has really good balance. They've been a top 25 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Now, with regards to their defense, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, it is a little bit touch and go at about 93rd, but Kentucky is 104th in this category. Now, one thing that you do have to fear, a little bit of body clock game here for Santa Clara, as this is going to be played at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, 9:15 Pacific time, but I think that they're going to be able to overcome that, as this is a bunch in Santa Clara that has been able to create havoc on defense. 21st in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Kentucky is just 228th, and this Kentucky team, not necessarily a superb three-point shooting team. Not going to call them terrible at 34.1%, but that's about country average. Denzel Albertine gives you about 13 points, 3.5 assists, shoots 35% for three. Ortega Owe, 18 points on about 34% three-point shooting. Colin Chandler has actually been your main man, shooting 42% from the outside. And this is a solid rebounding team. Mohamed Diabate, Malachi Moreno, they combine for about 12 or so rebounds per game. But then on the flip side, you've got a Santa Clara team that they do such a great job in terms of crashing the boards. Elijah Mai gives you a bit of everything with about 13.5 points, 4.5 boards, and then Alan Graves has now been able to shoot 41.5% from three, gives you 2 steals, 2 assists, 6.5 boards, 11 plus points per contest, and then Jake Amsinger, recognizing he doesn't give you a lot of scoring with just under 7 points per game, but 5.5 boards, 3 assists, steal per contest. Santa Clara just doing so many little things well. It's a Santa Clara team that really doesn't get to the free throw line, but they don't give up a lot of free throw attempts as well, with the way that they generate turnovers, the way that they've got size at every single position. I think that they get the job done here against a Kentucky team that has been shaky with their backcourt all season. So set my total at a 154.5, like the under, and Santa Clara here on the money line made them the 2.5 point favorite. 763, 764. Iowa State and Tennessee State do battle. Tennessee State underdogs of 24.5 points, and totals between 147.5 to 148.5. And with Tennessee State, I did set them as an underdog of 18.5 points. I'm going to be willing to take those points. Both of these teams have been supreme in terms of being able to generate turnovers. It's a Tennessee State team that isn't quite on the same level as Iowa State, but still, if you look at turnovers generated on a per possession basis, this team is 24th in all of college basketball. Now, Iowa State, they are checking in 4th in the country, and Iowa State continues to be a top 10 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They have been one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country as well. As right now for Iowa State, they are checking in 11th in the country, shooting 38.7% for three. Milan Mimicevic, he continues to shoot 50% from three. He's flying this team with about 16 plus points per contest, but it's a Tennessee State team that, in your number one under Nolan Smith, they've been able to do some good things, and I'm not going to call them like a defensive juggernaut, but still a team that overall is 71st in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. If you look at games played away from home, they actually check in the top 30 in all of college basketball, and they've got Dante Harris on the roster. You may recall he was part of that Georgetown team that made the NCAA tournament 2021, 4.5 assists, 11.5 points per game. Aaron Nakamura has been able to give you 17.5 points, 5.5 boards, 3 assists. Travis Harper, he's your main man from the outside, shooting 40% for three, 17.5 points per game. Tennessee State, they're outside the top 200 with their 3-point shooting percentage. Leave something to be desired there, but I think that they could be able to wreak some havoc on the glass, as this is a team that gives themselves quite a few second and third chances. They're, in terms of games played away from home, grabbing 33.9% of their misses as an offensive rebound. That is a top 45 mark in the country. Iowa State, they're about 50th in the country, grabbing about 32% of their misses as an offensive rebound, and you have to love Tamon Lipsby. Really doesn't shoot it well from three, but gives you multiple steals, 11 plus points per contest. He's the quarterback of the defense, and then Joshua Jefferson, he's an All-American that's been able to give you 5 assists, 7.5 boards, 17 points per game, shoots 34.5% from three, but with the way that Tennessee State has been able to do a rock-solid job on defense, I think that they hold in this game. I did set my total at a 146.5 as a result, like the under, and the points with Tennessee State made them an 18.5 point dog. 765, 766, you've got Northern Iowa playing against St. John's. This is from San Diego, California, and St. John's is a 9.5 point favorite. Still on this game, 131.5. I did set St. John's as an 8.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to take 9 plus with Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is 3rd in the country in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage at less than 28%. Now, Northern Iowa is not going to give themselves any sort of second and third chances whatsoever. 356th in the country in terms of percentage of their missed shots that result in an offensive rebound. St. John's is 41st, but to the credit of Northern Iowa, even though they give themselves absolutely no second chances whatsoever. They don't give you second chances whatsoever. For Northern Iowa, they're 31st in the country in terms of defensive rebound percentage, and that's a lifeblood for St. John's, who is 41st. Now, St. John's rock solid on defense as well. 14th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Northern Iowa is going to look to make this thing a slug. They're 362nd out of 365 teams in terms of total possessions frame. St. John's is 42nd, but you've got two teams that are based around defense a lot more, and you don't have that main point guard for St. John's yet. I mean, Zuby Ejiofor has been your main point guard, essentially, as he's giving you 16.7 boards, leads the team with 3.5 assists per game, and I have to love what Dylan Mitchell's been able to provide, as he only gives you about 8 points, but 7 boards, about 3 assists per contest as well. And St. John's, even though they really don't have that main trigger man, they are a top 75 team in terms of taking care of the ball, to their credit, but a pedestrian shooting team. They're outside the top 185 with regards to both their 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. Country average at 72.7% at the free throw line. Doing an amazing job in terms of not allowing clean looks themselves. Top 45 team with regards to opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. But I think that Northern Iowa holds in there with Leon Bond, Trey Campbell combining for about 25.5 points per game in the backcourt. They combine to shoot about 35% from 3-point range. It's a Northern Iowa team that has been solid with their 3-point shooting. I'm not going to call them amazing. 35.5%. That's right around about 100th in the country. And overall, it's a team that's about 174th in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. They do value the ball, though. And St. John's are a top 45 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Northern Iowa, top 30 team in terms of valuing the ball. They just don't get to the free throw line. Bottom 5 team in the country in terms of free throw attempts on a per possession basis, but they flourish on the inside. Top 75 team with their 2-point shooting percentage. You've been able to get about 5 boards out of Tristan Smith, who I know has been dealing with a little bit of an injury, but he and Will Hornseth, I think, are going to be able to do a rock solid job down low, and that keeps them lively. And I think it's a slog of a game, but I think that's close enough for late game fouling to give you just enough for the over. So somebody told 132.5. I do like the over, and 9+ here with Northern Iowa. 767, 768. Cal Baptist is going to be playing against Kansas. Kansas is a favorite of 14.5 points total on this game. 137.5 to 138.5. I like the under. I set my total out of 136. Kansas and Cal Baptist play a relatively similar tempo. 208th in the country is Cal Baptist in terms of total possessions per game. You've got Kansas, who is right there in that neighborhood as well. They're checking in about 192nd, and I mean, for Kansas, 35th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but the offense has been leaving a lot more to be desired than we expected. They're currently just 136th in the country in terms of points per possession on offense. They're averaging about 12.7 points fewer per 100 possessions when they're away from home rather than at home, and ever since Darren Peterson has been playing 30+ minutes, he just really hasn't been super duper efficient. He overall gives you about 20 points per game and has been shooting about 38.5% from 3, but that's been tailing a little bit here in the back half of the season. Now, the team is very sought down low. Flory Banunga, 13.5 points, 2.5 blocks per contest. Trey White is able to give you 14 points per game, as Kansas is a top 10 team in the country in terms of shot block percentage. But for Kansas, even though they've been so strong down low, they're a top 10 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They are going to give you second and third chances. This is a Kansas team that is allowing teams to be able to grab about 27.5% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, 143rd in the country. Cal Baptist, they grab about 36% of their misses as an offensive rebound. That's a top 15 mark in the country. Now, Cal Baptist, not necessarily the best shooting team in the world. They are finding themselves outside the top 270 with regards to their field goal shooting percentage, but you do have Dominique Daniels, who in terms of points per game is the best scorer in this game, actually. 23.2 points, 3 assists, shoots 33% from 3. Cal Baptist shoots 33.7% from the outside. That's outside the top 195 in the country, but you've got a lot of guys who are able to stand up to this front line down low. Jonathan Grimmin, he only gives you about 6 points, but also 6 rebounds per game. Thomas Endong, Brady Henjai, these two guys combine for about 12 rebounds per game. Between the two of them, only about 9.9 points per game, but Martell Williams, how he does it, he's giving you about 12.5 points, 5 boards, shoots in the mid-30s from 3-point range. It's a Cal Baptist team that their main kryptonite has been turning the ball over, about 270th with regards to turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, but Kansas, for as great as the defense is, they are about 337th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Cal Baptist, a top 15 team in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Think that this is going to be a slog of a game that Cal Baptist holds in there on. So my total 136. I like the under, and the points with Cal Baptist made them an 8-point dog. 769, 770. You've got Arizona, and they're going to be playing against Long Island, an underdog of 30.5 points. 149.5 to 150.5 is the total. Taking the points with Long Island, as I did set them as a 26-point underdog. Long Island's main kryptonite has been turnovers, about 330th in the country in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. Not that Arizona's awful at generating turnovers, but they're country average, 174th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, and Long Island has been doing a relatively solid job in terms of giving themselves second and third chances, and they shoot about 36% from 3-point 3-point. That's a top 85 mark in the country. LIU, neither here nor there with their offense, 175th in terms of points per possession, mainly because of the turnovers. And you got an Arizona team that is one of the most balanced teams in all of college basketball. They are 13th in terms of points per possession on offense, 6th in points allowed on a per possession basis on defense. And with this Arizona team, you're going to have Monte Krivas along Toby Awaka control things on low with about 17.5 rebounds per game. But you've got really a nice big three with this Long Island team. Greg Gordon is able to give you 14 points, 5.5 boards, 3 assists. Jamal Floor, main 3-point shooter at 44% from the outside, 16.5 points, 5.5 boards. Malachi Davis, 14.5 points per game. And well, I like Braden Burries, who's been able to give you 15 points per game. Pete, he does a little bit of everything, 5+ boards, 13.5 points per game. I do think that the Sharks are going to do just enough to be able to hold in there. While this is an LIU team that certainly has been giving the ball away, they have been able to be a top 50 team with regards to offensive rebound percentage, and this is a team that they themselves have been able to do a solid job in terms of generating turnovers. They're overall 55th in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Games played away from them, that's a top 45 mark. And if you look at Long Island in non-conference play, they were top 100 team in terms of total possessions per game, slowed down by the fact that the NEC has just a whole bunch of teams that like to slog it up. Arizona 60th in terms of total possessions per game. I think they get an over here. Semi-total 154, like the over, and the points here with Long Island. And wrap things up with 771, 772. Utah State and Villanova do battle, and Villanova does find themselves as a underdog here of 1.5 points. 146.5 to 147.5 is the total, and I do like the under. Semi-total 142.5. Neither team is playing at an aggressive pace right now with Utah State 183rd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Villanova 260th, and for Villanova, they're going to have a tough time against a Utah State team that's 4th in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Villanova's not bad in terms of generating turnovers as well. 62nd in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. And for Villanova, 3-point shooting has taken a massive dive away from home. They shoot 37.8% from 3-point range at home, 32.4% away from home. That's big because Utah State is outside the top 175 with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Utah State, meanwhile, they shoot more like 34.7% from the outside in games played away from home. And it's a Utah State team that has been able to have Mason Fosloff be so versatile. He gives you multiple steals. He shoots 40% from 3, and he's been able to supply this team with right in that neighborhood about 14 or so points per contest, actually closer to 16 points per game. MJ Collins, he's been that main scorer with about 17.5 points per game. He shoots about 36% from the outside. Kobe King has been the king of giving you about 39.5% 3-point shooting off the bench, and for Utah State, they just flourish on the inside. They're a top 15 team with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentage. Villanova 170th with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. They've got Duke Brandon, who's able to give you 12.5 points, 10.5 rebounds per game, but the only other player that gives you over 3.6 boards per contest, Tyler Perkins, who's been solid, 13.5 points, a steal, 5.5 rebounds per game. But for Villanova, also if they're in a pressure spot, they shoot 69.4% at the free throw line. That is a bottom 85 mark in all of college basketball. And Utah State is a top 125 team in terms of free throw attempts allowed on a per possession basis, so that hurts them all the further in this game. It's a Villanova team that they don't necessarily do a lot of things amazing, they don't necessarily do a lot of things terrible, but they're also going to give you a lot of second and third chances as well. They're allowing opponents to grab nearly 30% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound outside the top 240 with that regard. I think that Utah State, as a result, finds a way to get the job done in a slower game. So Utah State is a 4.5 point favorite. Want to lay the 1.5 and like the under, semi-total 142.5. And that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Ivetta Abrahman, who's doing great work over at Bracketeer.org. She joined me in the last segment. If you do like sharing friends' fine podcasts, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you hear podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_E1. Keep in mind, letters the me does not matter, so please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast, that 5-star review, and I am always loving what we're getting in college basketball, especially this time of year. I'm with you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every single game, every single day, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.